solutions. Here to help us make sense of it all, Ted Cicero from Washington University. Help us out here, first of all. What's standing out to you tonight? Is there something we've missed in a big way that you want to make sure people know about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we've missed is really why people are taking these drugs. We've talked about that they're starting at a very early age with marijuana, alcohol, and then moving on to other drugs. I think we have to look back at the whole way this started was back in the 90s. There was an emphasis in this country on the treatment of pain. And all of a sudden, opiate analgesics became readily available and used quite frequently by doctors.
Pain pills. Prescription pain medicine.
And the more pain pills prescribed, the more leakage there was out into the community. People stealing out of medicine cabinets, taking their parents' medications, whatever. The logic behind it, if you talk to these kids, and we interview about 1,000 people a month, a quarter as part of our studies. If you talk to them, why do you take these prescription opioids? Well, they make me feel good, and they're perfectly safe. They're not heroin. They come in pill forms that are easily identifiable. They've got numbers on them. I know what the dose is, so it's very safe for me. So the logic was impeccable, actually, that if I take these drugs, they're safe to take because I know what I'm getting. With heroin, I don't know what I'm getting. So that's a dangerous thing I won't do. So they began taking prescription opioids, and this went on for a period now of 15 or 20 years, but reached a point where it wasn't enough anymore. As we got up to oxycodone and much more powerful drugs, they became very expensive, up to $80 for
a pill.
Up to $80 when you had heroin down at $10, quite inexpensive.
At a higher potency.
Much higher potency, and
So they make that transition, and as we've heard tonight, no one starts out on heroin saying, I think I may put a belt around my arm and a needle in my arm.
No.
That's not how it goes. But they do get to that point.
They do get to the point. They start out initially snorting is the most acceptable means of doing it. It's just like cocaine. You just snort the heroin. It's very pure at this point because dealers are businessmen, and they've had to price the heroin at a low enough price and with a high enough purity that they'll have their customers coming back. So you have this nefarious thing going on where oxycodone prices and pain analgesic prices were rising dramatically. Heroin was decreasing and it was getting pure. It was sort of the perfect storm at this point for kids to say, well, I'm going to try it just to snort it because I don't have to inject it. I can just snort it or I can smoke it and I'll get a high.
I hate to ask you in 60 seconds to tell us what we should do going forward, but in 60 seconds, what should we do going forward?
We've got to start educating kids, and I think some of the reasons kids take these drugs we have to recognize. They have self-esteem issues very often, they have anxiety levels, they have depression, and these drugs make them feel better. And a lot of kids we talk to basically say, I feel normal when I'm on these medications. I think what we need to start to do is not so much focus on the supply side, but on the demand side. To look at these kids and say, what is the demand? Why are you using these drugs? Are you using them inappropriately? And if so, we have to gear all of our prevention and intervention techniques to stopping that demand. Our country has taken too long a policy that if we stop the supply of drugs, we'll decrease demand. That hasn't worked. It never has worked, and it never will work until we work on the demand side, reduce that amount.
Dr.